In a distant future, humanity had reached the stars and become an important member of the Galactic Council. This council was made up of many advanced civilizations that worked together to keep peace and share resources across the galaxy. The council's assembly hall was a massive, glowing structure floating in space. It was filled with representatives from different species, all gathered to discuss matters that affected everyone. Among them was Daniel Carter, a calm and thoughtful diplomat who spoke for Earth. He was known for his patience and ability to listen, even when tensions ran high. On this particular day, the atmosphere in the assembly was tense. For years, there had been growing disagreements between humanity and some of the other members of the Council. Many alien species accused humans of being greedy and selfish, caring only about their own expansion into the galaxy. They argued that humanity took more than its fair share of resources and ignored the needs of smaller, less powerful civilizations. Daniel tried his best to defend Earth, but he could feel the weight of distrust pressing down on him. The meeting reached a breaking point when Rachel Monroe stood up to speak. Rachel was a senator from Earth, known for her boldness and fiery speeches. She walked to the center of the assembly, her presence commanding attention. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she began to address the council. "For too long," she said, "we have allowed ourselves to be held back by rules that do not serve our best interests. Humanity has grown strong, and we no longer need to bow to the demands of others. We will chart our own path, freed from the restrictions of this council." Her words sent shockwaves through the room. Some of the alien representatives looked angry, while others seemed confused or worried. A few even shouted protests, their voices overlapping in a chaotic mix of languages. Daniel watched silently, feeling uneasy. He knew that Rachel's speech would have serious consequences, but it was too late to stop her now. By the time she finished speaking, the decision had been made. Humanity would leave the Galactic Council and go its own way. As the human delegation prepared to leave the assembly, whispers spread among the other species. Some called it an act of betrayal, while others saw it as a declaration of war. Daniel could feel the eyes of the aliens on him as he walked out, their expressions unreadable. He wanted to explain, to assure them that this wasn't the end, but he knew it wouldn't matter. The damage had already been done. Back on Earth, news of the decision spread quickly. People reacted in different ways. Some cheered, celebrating what they saw as a victory for independence. Others were more cautious, wondering how humanity would survive without the support of the Council. Nathan Brooks, a scientist working on new forms of energy, felt a deep sense of unease. He knew that Earth relied on technology shared by the Council, and losing access to it could be disastrous. Still, he kept his concerns to himself, unsure if anyone would listen. Meanwhile, Laura Dawson, a journalist, traveled across the planet to talk to people about their thoughts on the situation. She interviewed farmers, workers, and families, trying to understand how they felt about leaving the Council. What she found surprised her. While many were proud of humanity's bold move, there was also a quiet fear lingering beneath the surface. No one knew what the future held, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. After leaving the Galactic Council, life on Earth began to change in unexpected ways. At first, many people celebrated the decision. They saw it as a chance for humanity to stand on its own and make its own choices. Parades were held in cities around the world, and speeches praised the courage of leaders like Rachel Monroe. But not everyone shared this optimism. Beneath the surface, cracks were starting to show. Nathan Brooks, a scientist working in a high-tech lab, noticed problems almost immediately. His team had been developing new energy sources, but they relied on materials that were only available through trade with other council members. Now that those trade routes were cut off, progress slowed to a crawl. Nathan tried to explain the situation to his superiors, but they dismissed his concerns. "We'll find a way," they told him. Humanity has always found a way. Nathan wasn't so sure. He spent long hours staring at his experiments, wondering how they would survive without help from the rest of the galaxy. Laura Dawson, the journalist, continued her work traveling across Earth, to report on how people were coping. She visited farms where crops were failing because of shortages in fertilizer, once supplied by alien partners. In cities, factories sat idle because they lacked parts that used to come from council-controlled systems. People were beginning to feel the pinch, and their pride was turning into frustration. Laura interviewed a farmer named Joe, who shook his head as he spoke. "We were told we'd be better off without them," he said. "But now my fields are drying up, and I don't know what to do." Despite these challenges, there were still those who believed in humanity's independence. Benjamin Holt, a military strategist, argued that Earth didn't need the Council. He gave speeches on television, saying that humans were stronger and smarter than any other species. "We don't need their handouts," he declared. "We can build our own future." His words inspired some, but others thought he was being reckless. They worried that his aggressive attitude might lead to trouble down the line. Meanwhile, in space, tensions were rising among the alien species left behind in the Council. Without humanity's presence, old rivalries flared up again. Smaller disputes turned into bigger conflicts, and rumors of battles reached Earth. Samantha Grant, a pilot stationed near the edge of human-controlled space, began noticing strange activity. Alien ships moved back and forth in patterns that suggested fighting. When she reported this to her commanding officer, he shrugged it off. "It's not our problem anymore," he said. "Let them fight each other if they want to." Samantha wasn't convinced. She had seen enough during her time in space to know that instability in the galaxy could eventually spill over onto Earth. Still, there was little she could do except keep watch and hope for the best. Back on Earth, Rachel Monroe faced growing criticism for her role in leaving the Council. Some accused her of acting out of personal ambition, rather than thinking about the planet's needs. Others defended her, saying she had done what was necessary to protect humanity's interests. The debates grew louder, dividing communities and even families. Daniel Carter, the former diplomat, watched all of this unfold with a heavy heart. He had always believed in cooperation, and seeing humanity isolate itself pained him deeply. One evening, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, staring out at the city skyline. Lights twinkled in the distance, but he couldn't shake the feeling that darkness was creeping closer. Humanity had chosen to go its own way, but at what cost? He wondered if anyone truly understood the risks they were taking. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, and Earth was just one small part of it. As he sipped his coffee, Daniel whispered to himself, "I hope we're ready for whatever comes next." The days ahead would test humanity like never before. Months passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and the first signs of trouble began to appear. The galaxy, once held together by the Council's rules and alliances, started to unravel. Samantha Grant, a pilot stationed near the edge of human-controlled space, was one of the first to witness the chaos. On her patrols, she noticed alien ships moving in unusual patterns. Some vessels seemed damaged, their hulls scorched from battles. Others flew in tight formations, as if preparing for war. When she reported this to her superiors, they dismissed her concerns. "It's not our problem," they said. "Let them sort it out themselves." But Samantha couldn't ignore what she was seeing. One day, during a routine mission, her ship's sensors picked up a distress signal. She followed it to a nearby planet, where she found the remnants of a colony destroyed by conflict. Buildings lay in ruins, and the ground was scarred with craters. There were no survivors, only silence. Samantha recorded everything and sent the data back to Earth, hoping someone would take it seriously. Instead, her report was buried under piles of other messages, ignored like so many others. Back on Earth, life was becoming harder for ordinary people. Trade routes that once brought food and supplies from other parts of the galaxy had collapsed. In poorer regions, hunger became a daily struggle. Nathan Brooks, the scientist, saw the effects firsthand when he visited a research facility in a rural area. The scientists there told him they were running low on basic materials. "We can't keep going like this," one of them said. "If things don't improve soon, we'll have to shut down completely." Nathan nodded but didn't know how to help. He felt powerless, like everyone else. Laura Dawson, the journalist, traveled to cities and towns to document how people were coping. She met a woman named Clara, who ran a small grocery store. Shelves that used to be full now stood almost empty. "I used to get shipments every week," Clara explained. "Now I'm lucky if I get anything at all." Her voice cracked as she spoke. "People come in here looking for food, but there's nothing left to give them." Laura wrote down every word, knowing these stories needed to be told, but even she doubted anyone in power would listen. Meanwhile, Benjamin Holt, the military strategist, continued to push for a stronger defense. He argued that Earth needed to prepare for the worst. "The aliens won't stay quiet forever," he warned. "When they decide to act, we need to be ready." His speeches gained popularity, especially among those who felt abandoned by the government. Recruitment numbers for Earth's military forces began to rise as more people joined, believing Holt's warnings about an impending threat. Daniel Carter, the former diplomat, watched all of this unfold with growing unease. He tried to reach out to old contacts from his time in the Galactic Council, hoping to rebuild some kind of dialogue. But most of them refused to speak with him. One message he received simply read, "You chose your path. Now live with the consequences." Daniel stared at the screen, feeling a deep sense of regret. He wondered if leaving the council had been a mistake, but it was too late to turn back now. One night, Laura Dawson sat in her apartment, typing up her latest article. She thought about all the people she had interviewed: farmers struggling to grow crops, shopkeepers watching their businesses fail, families wondering how they would survive. It wasn't just about shortages or economic problems anymore. Something bigger was happening, something dangerous. The galaxy was falling apart, and Earth was caught in the middle of it. As she saved her work, Laura glanced out the window. The stars twinkled in the night sky, distant and cold. Somewhere out there, wars raged and civilizations crumbled. And here on Earth, humanity was alone, unprepared for what might come next. For the first time, Laura felt truly afraid. One evening, as Daniel Carter sat in his quiet apartment reviewing old notes from his time at the Galactic Council, an unexpected message appeared on his communication device. It was encrypted and marked urgent. Curious, he opened it to find a request for a secret meeting. The sender identified himself as Californ, a representative of the Cytherians, a species known for staying neutral in galactic politics. Californ claimed to have information that could help humanity but insisted on meeting in person. Though wary, Daniel agreed. He knew Earth needed allies now more than ever. Daniel decided to bring Laura Dawson along. Her sharp instincts and ability to read people made her a valuable companion for such a risky mission. Together, they boarded a small, unmarked ship and set course for a remote space station near the edge of Cytherian territory. The journey was tense, with both of them wondering if this was a trap. When they arrived, they were greeted by Californ, a tall, slender alien with shimmering blue skin and calm, intelligent eyes. He led them to a private chamber and began speaking. "The Council is broken," Californ said plainly. "Without humanity's influence, it has descended into chaos. Many species blame you for leaving, but others see opportunity. Humanity is unpredictable, adaptable. Some believe you could tip the balance of power in the galaxy if you choose to act." Daniel listened carefully, trying to read between the lines. Californ explained that several alien factions were considering forming a new alliance, one independent of the crumbling council. They wanted humanity to join them, but there was a catch. This new group sought to challenge the Vrin, a powerful and militaristic species that had long dominated galactic affairs. Laura leaned forward, her reporter's instincts kicking in. "Why are you telling us this?" she asked. "What do you get out of it?" Californ hesitated before answering. "The Cytherians value stability above all else. If the Vrin grow too strong, they will crush any opposition, including us. We need a wild card, a force capable of standing against them. That is where humanity comes in." As they spoke, Daniel felt a mix of hope and dread. Joining this new alliance could give Earth a chance to regain its footing in the galaxy, but it also meant stepping back into the dangerous game of interstellar politics. He glanced at Laura, who nodded slightly, encouraging him to consider the offer. Before making a decision, Daniel asked for time to think and discuss it further with Earth's leaders. Back on Earth, news of the proposal leaked unexpectedly. Someone within the government had shared details with the press, and soon the entire planet was talking about it. Public opinion was divided. Some saw the Zetherian offer as a lifeline, a way to rebuild relationships and secure much-needed resources. Others viewed it as a betrayal of humanity's independence, arguing that allying with aliens would only lead to more conflict. Benjamin Holt, the military strategist, was among the loudest critics. "We don't need their help," he declared in a televised speech. "If the Vrin want a fight, we'll give them one ourselves." Rachel Monroe, still grappling with criticism over her role in leaving the council, found herself caught in the middle. She called for calm, urging people to weigh the risks and benefits carefully. But her words carried little weight now. Protests erupted in cities around the world, with crowds shouting slogans both for and against the alliance. Nathan Brooks watched the chaos unfold on the news, feeling more anxious than ever. He knew Earth couldn't survive alone, but he also feared the consequences of picking sides in an alien conflict. As the debate raged on, Daniel and Laura worked behind the scenes to gather support for the Zetherian proposal. They reached out to trusted allies, explaining the potential benefits of joining forces with other species. But they also faced resistance from powerful figures like Benjamin Holt, who believed humanity should rely solely on its own strength. The situation grew more complicated when rumors surfaced that someone close to Rachel might have leaked the proposal intentionally to sabotage diplomacy and push Earth toward war. By the time the dust settled, it was clear that humanity stood at a crossroads. The choice ahead would shape not just its future, but the fate of the entire galaxy. And as Daniel looked up at the stars that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The debate over the Zetherian proposal tore through Earth's leadership like a storm. Tensions ran high as factions within the government clashed over what to do next. Rachel Monroe, already under fire for her role in leaving the Galactic Council, found herself at the center of the chaos. Her office was flooded with demands for answers, and protesters gathered outside, holding signs that read everything from "Trust the aliens" to "Stay independent." The pressure was relentless, and Rachel began to feel the weight of her decisions more than ever. Benjamin Holt, the military strategist, used the opportunity to push his agenda even harder. He gave fiery speeches on television, warning that allying with the Zetherians would only drag Earth into someone else's war. "We don't owe them anything," he said, pointing at images of alien ships on the screen. "If the Vrin come for us, we'll fight them ourselves. Humanity doesn't need handouts or alliances. We need strength." His words resonated with many, especially those who believed Earth should rely solely on its own resources. Recruitment numbers for Earth's defense forces surged as people rallied behind his message. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter and Laura Dawson worked tirelessly to build support for the Zetherian offer. They met with scientists, diplomats, and community leaders, explaining why joining forces with other species might be humanity's best chance at survival. Nathan Brooks, the scientist, reluctantly joined their efforts after seeing the growing instability in Earth's economy and infrastructure. "We can't keep going like this," he admitted during one meeting. "If we don't find allies soon, we'll collapse before anyone even attacks us." Despite their efforts, distrust lingered. Many feared that the Zetherians had hidden motives, while others worried about provoking the Vrin. The situation grew worse when evidence surfaced suggesting sabotage from within. Daniel received an anonymous tip pointing to Rachel's closest advisor, a man named Victor Lane. According to the tip, Victor had leaked the Zetherian proposal to create division and steer Earth toward conflict. Though shocked, Daniel decided to investigate further. He and Laura confronted Victor in a quiet corner of the Capitol building. At first, Victor denied any involvement. But when Laura mentioned specific details about the leak, his confidence wavered. Finally, he confessed. "I did it," he admitted, his voice low. "But I thought I was protecting us. The Council abandoned us, and now these aliens want to use us as pawns. I couldn't let that happen." His reasoning made sense in a twisted way, but it didn't change the damage he had caused. As news of Victor's betrayal spread, public opinion shifted again. Many saw it as proof that humanity couldn't afford to isolate itself any longer. Even Rachel, who had been hesitant to trust the Zetherians, began to reconsider. She called an emergency meeting with Earth's top leaders, including Daniel, Laura, and Nathan. For hours, they debated the risks and benefits of accepting the alliance. In the end, Rachel made the final call. "We'll take the offer," she said, her voice firm despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "But we move carefully. This isn't just about survival. It's about rebuilding trust, both with others and with ourselves." With the decision made, Daniel and Laura prepared to return to the Zetherians to finalize the agreement. But as they boarded their ship, they couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Reports from space stations near Earth's borders spoke of increased activity by the Vryn fleet. Samantha Grant, still patrolling the outer rim, sent urgent messages warning of enemy ships moving closer. It seemed clear. The Vryn were coming, and they weren't interested in negotiations. Back on Earth, Benjamin Holt watched the developments with growing frustration. He didn't trust the Zetherians and believed the alliance would only weaken Earth's defenses. As he stared at a map of the galaxy, plotting potential battle strategies, he muttered to himself, "If they think we're going down without a fight, they'd got another thing coming." The stage was set for a confrontation that could determine humanity's fate, and no one knew if they were truly ready. The warning signs came too late. One morning, Earth's defense systems detected a massive fleet approaching the planet's borders. It was the Vryn, their ships dark and menacing as they moved in formation. The news spread quickly, sending shockwaves through cities and towns. Panic gripped the population as people realized the enemy was no longer just a distant threat. It was here. Samantha Grant was among the first to engage the invaders. Stationed aboard a small reconnaissance vessel near the outer rim of human-controlled space, she received orders to delay the Vryn advance, while Earth prepared its defenses. Her heart raced as she piloted her ship toward the enemy fleet. She knew her chances of survival were slim, but she didn't hesitate. "This is what I trained for," she muttered to herself, gripping the controls tightly. The battle began almost immediately. Samantha's ship darted between the larger Vryn vessels, firing bursts of energy to disrupt their coordination. For a moment, it seemed like her efforts might work. The enemy ships hesitated, their movements less precise. But then reinforcements arrived, overwhelming her position. Her ship took heavy damage, alarms blaring as smoke filled the cockpit. Still, Samantha refused to retreat. She transmitted everything she could back to Earth: ship formations, weapon patterns, anything that might help humanity fight back. Finally, with her ship on the verge of collapse, she activated the emergency escape pod and ejected into space, watching as her vessel exploded behind her. Back on Earth, leaders scrambled to respond. Benjamin Holt took charge of the military strategy, barking orders to his team as they prepared for an all-out defense. He had always believed humanity could stand alone, and now he was determined to prove it. Troops were mobilized, and every available ship was sent to reinforce the front lines. Nathan Brooks worked around the clock alongside his team, trying to adapt old technology to counter the Vryn's superior weapons. "We don't have time to test this," he told his colleagues as they installed an experimental device on one of the warships. "But if it works, it might give us a fighting chance." Meanwhile, Daniel Carter and Laura Dawson raced against time to rally support from the Zetherians and other alien factions. They pleaded for immediate assistance, explaining that Earth wouldn't last long without help. Kelvorn, the Zetherian representative, listened carefully before agreeing to send reinforcements. "We'll come," he said, But you must hold out until we arrive. His words offered some hope, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The Vryn fleet was too large, their attacks too relentless. As the battle raged in space, Earth itself came under siege. Cities shook as enemy ships fired on key targets. Power plants, communication hubs, and military bases. Civilians fled in terror, seeking shelter wherever they could find it. Rachel Monroe addressed the nation from a secure bunker, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We are facing our greatest challenge," she said. "But humanity has survived worse. We will not give up. We will not surrender." Amid the destruction, Nathan Brooks revealed a desperate plan. His team had developed a prototype weapon capable of disrupting the Vryn's communication systems, effectively crippling their fleet. The problem? It needed to be deployed from inside the enemy flagship. A suicide mission. When the proposal was presented to the leadership, silence fell over the room. No one wanted to volunteer for such a task, but someone had to step forward. To everyone's surprise, Benjamin Holt raised his hand. "I'll do it," he said firmly. His decision shocked even his harshest critics. Some questioned his motives, wondering if this was another attempt to prove his strength. But when pressed, he simply replied, "It's not about me. It's about giving humanity a chance to survive." With little time to argue, the plan was set into motion. Benjamin boarded a small, heavily armed ship and launched toward the Vryn flagship. His journey was perilous, dodging enemy fire and narrowly avoiding destruction. When he finally reached the target, he activated the weapon and braced for impact. A bright flash lit up the sky as the device detonated, disabling the Vryn fleet's coordination. Moments later, allied ships from the Zetherians and other species arrived, turning the tide of the battle. Earth was saved, for now, but the cost had been immense. As survivors picked up the pieces, they couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, but the road to recovery would be long and uncertain. The aftermath of the battle left Earth scared but alive. Smoke still hung in the air over cities that had been struck by the Vryn's attacks, and the streets were filled with people searching for loved ones or trying to rebuild what had been lost. The victory felt hollow. Too many lives had been sacrificed. Too much destruction had been wrought. Among the survivors, there was a mix of relief and sorrow. Humanity had endured, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. Benjamin Holt's sacrifice became a symbol of unity for a fractured world. News of his mission spread quickly, and soon his name was spoken with reverence. Even those who had once criticized him now acknowledged his bravery. Laura Dawson wrote an article about him, describing how he had set aside his pride and anger to save humanity. "He gave everything so we could have a future," she wrote. "And that future is ours to shape now." Her words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about what kind of world people wanted to create moving forward. Rachel Monroe, who had faced so much criticism for her role in leaving the Galactic Council, stepped down from her position. In a quiet speech broadcast across the planet, she admitted her mistakes and urged humanity to learn from them. "We thought we could stand alone," she said, her voice trembling. "But we were wrong. Survival isn't just about strength, it's about connection. We need each other, not just as humans, but as part of something greater." Her resignation marked the end of an era, but it also opened the door for new leadership to guide Earth toward healing. Daniel Carter took on a key role in rebuilding relationships with alien species, with the Zetherians and their allies having played a crucial part in defeating the Vryn. Trust began to form where there had once been only suspicion. Daniel worked tirelessly to negotiate trade agreements, share resources, and establish communication channels that would prevent future conflicts. He knew it wouldn't be easy. Old wounds ran deep, but he believed humanity had been given a second chance and couldn't afford to waste it. Nathan Brooks returned to his lab with renewed purpose. The experimental weapon that had helped turn the tide of the battle inspired him to push further into uncharted scientific territory. He collaborated with Zetherian engineers, exchanging knowledge and ideas that benefited both sides. Together, They developed technologies that improved energy efficiency, crop yields, and medical treatments. For the first time in months, Nathan felt hopeful. "This is how we move forward," he told his team. "By working together, not apart." Samantha Grant, recovering from her narrow escape during the battle, was hailed as a hero. She had risked her life to gather critical intelligence, and her actions had saved countless others. When asked about her experience, she shrugged modestly. "I just did my job," she said, but her courage reminded everyone of the sacrifices made during the war and the resilience that defined humanity. As weeks turned into months, Earth slowly began to recover. People planted new crops, repaired damaged buildings, and welcomed aid from their alien allies. Children returned to schools, laughter echoed through neighborhoods again, and communities came together to support one another. It wasn't perfect. Shortages still lingered, and tensions occasionally flared. But progress was undeniable. One evening, Daniel stood outside his home, looking up at the stars. The sky seemed brighter now, filled with possibilities instead of fears. He thought about Benjamin's sacrifice, Rachel's humility, and the countless unnamed individuals who had fought for survival. Humanity had stumbled, fallen, and risen again. They weren't perfect, but they were learning. For the first time in a long while, Daniel allowed himself to feel hope. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but humanity had proven it could adapt. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them, not alone, but as part of a larger community. And maybe, just maybe, they could build something better this time. Years passed since the battle with the Vryn, and Earth began to heal. The scars of war still lingered. Abandoned buildings stood as reminders of destruction, and families continued to honor those who had been lost. But a new spirit of hope emerged. Humanity had learned hard lessons about pride, isolation, and the importance of connection. Slowly but surely, people worked together to rebuild not just their planet, but their place in the galaxy. Daniel Carter became one of the most respected figures in this new era. He dedicated his life to fostering relationships between humanity and other species. Under his guidance, Earth joined a coalition of civilizations committed to peace and cooperation. It wasn't like the old Galactic Council. It was smaller, more flexible, and built on trust rather than rigid rules. Daniel traveled often, meeting with leaders from across the stars to discuss shared goals. He found joy in seeing how far humanity had come, from being seen as reckless outsiders to valued partners. Laura Dawson also played a key role in shaping this new future. Her articles about the war and its aftermath inspired people to reflect on what they had endured and how they could grow stronger. She focused on stories of collaboration, human farmers working alongside alien agronomists to improve crop yields, scientists sharing breakthroughs that benefited everyone, and children learning about different cultures through exchange programs. "We're all part of something bigger now," she wrote in one piece, "and that's a good thing." Nathan Brooks continued to push the boundaries of science, driven by the belief that innovation could bring people together. His partnership with Zitherian engineers led to incredible advancements, including clean energy systems that powered entire cities and medical treatments that saved countless lives. When asked about his motivation, he simply said, "If we can use knowledge to help each other, why wouldn't we?" Samantha Grant, once a lone pilot patrolling the edges of space, became a symbol of unity. She helped train a new generation of pilots, teaching them not just how to fight, but how to protect and cooperate. Her story reminded everyone that courage wasn't about standing alone. It was about standing with others when it mattered most. Rachel Monroe, though no longer in the spotlight, found peace in her quiet retirement. She spent her days gardening and mentoring young leaders, sharing the wisdom she had gained from both success and failure. "We don't have to be perfect," she told them. "We just have to keep trying." As Earth flourished, its people looked outward again. Explorers ventured into uncharted regions of space, seeking new opportunities for growth and understanding. Trade routes reopened, bringing prosperity back to struggling communities. Art, music, and ideas flowed freely between worlds, creating a rich tapestry of shared experiences. One evening, Daniel stood on a hill overlooking a bustling city. Lights twinkled below, and ships drifted lazily across the night sky. He thought about everything humanity had been through, the mistakes, the sacrifices, the victories, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. They weren't alone anymore. They were part of something greater, a web of connections stretching across the stars. He smiled as he remembered Benjamin Holt's final words. "It's not about me. It's about giving humanity a chance." That chance had turned into something remarkable. Humanity had stumbled, fallen, and risen again, not as conquerors or outcasts, but as equals willing to work alongside others. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but Earth faced them with open hearts and steady hands. Whatever came next, humanity would meet it together. And in that unity, there was strength.